All right, Lucas. So let's talk about this Vancouver Canucks situation. I know you're going to pull up the quotes from Bo Horvat and JT Miller, but what a mess. I'm smiling because I look like a dummy. I'm just like going into the season, even after the first few losses, I'm like, you know what? They're blowing leads. Things are going to change here. It's fine in Vancouver. But now we advance another week, advance a few more games, and we're on a new pod here just talking about how the Canucks now I can't believe I'm saying Connor Bedard and Vancouver Canucks in the same sentence. And now people are calling for Bruce to be. I mean, it was what it seems like a few months ago, Canucks fans were chanting Bruce. There it is.
I know, man. How have we turned like this? I mean, I still want to highlight it is still early. It's not
Yeah,
as early as our last conversation, but it is still early. They're going to have to turn it around pretty quickly if they want to have
yeah.
hopes of catching up. But what a disaster out there. I mean, it's also one of the bigger hockey markets in the NHL. And so I can't imagine what the press is running with over there. But some of these quotes that have been going on with Bo Horvat and JT Miller, I mean,
Yeah, drop it. Let's hear it. This is so bad.
let's start with Bo Horvat. So let's keep in mind this is a guy who obviously needs a new contract. Doesn't sound very content here, but he's the captain. And he went on to say this yesterday. It's been a lot of years in the rebuild stage. And at this point in the season, it just feels like it's never going to happen. Like we're never going to win again. John, reaction.
Man, so I didn't see the full Horvat quote. I've obviously seen the JT Miller one countless times, but you gave me the full quote, and I'm just like, imagine, imagine in the Leafs disaster days if Dion Phaneuf said something like that. What the media would have done.
They would have chased him out of town. I mean, our Toronto would have been on
They did
fire,
anyways.
man.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but Bo Horvat, man, the captain, like it's to me that's crazy. I think you talk about a team, yes, that had so much expectation, but you have to you have to realize as an NHL player, as a guy that like can see how every other team's doing too. Like who cares? Like at the end of the day, who cares in an 82 game season what you do in 6 games if you turn it around? Like he has like the whole mentality right now is like go for Bedard. And when we're talking 6, 7, 8, 9 games, of course there's time to be concerned. But do we really think some of these teams that have these flying starts right now are going to hold that on for the year? Like how many times have we seen? I actually in this episode we're giving major credit to the Buffalo Sabres, so I'm not trying to shit on them at all. But how many years, Lucas, in October, November, have we seen the Sabres string along like 8, 9, 10 wins? I think they had the 10 game winning streak a couple years ago,
Yep. Yep.
years ago, and Sabres, we're going back to the playoffs, and the Sabres finished what was it like bottom three in the league?
Yep. Yep. It
Like so,
happens, man.
it happened. So all I'm saying is like I'm now getting worried for the Canucks for sure. I am. I'm not as confident as I was about a week and a half ago, but I still think this team's going to turn it around in some sense. But what I will say is I was freaking right. You should have traded JT Miller when his value was the highest. Now you're in that contract. And now pull up JT Miller's quote, Lucas. This is the guy you have locked up for 8 years.
JT Miller's quote. Well, some context as well, too. I was watching the last game that they were playing against the Sabres and going into the third period, I believe. So it was right after the second period ended. Him and Luke Shen got into a bit of a bout with the disagreement skating off the ice. So that's where this all kind of started. But JT Miller did say this. If they want to throw their shit on the ice, it's up to them. If they want to come to the game, spend all their money, and throw their gear on the ice, that's up to them. So now he's taking a shot at the Canucks fan base. I mean, it's going off the deep end. This guy just signed this contract. Like
I can't believe it, man. How it goes. You just committed 8 years of your life, and you're crapping on the org after after a bit of games. But I also think it's funny too because I think it's such a situation where it's you have multiple like it's not even like just the losing. It's like now Hughes' injury, Besser's injury, like Bruce is all over the place. Like this Rachel Dory stuff behind the scenes for the Canucks and the firing and like this potential lawsuit. Like this stuff is just piling on for the Canucks. And and maybe that has part of it. Maybe there are stuff happening behind the scenes with the Canucks organization, the players. Certain things are happening because for me right now, and speaking as a Leafs, I know it's always the comparison to the Leafs, but Leafs experience of crap behind the scenes and blowing leads and just crap performances, like there's got to be something said. Like it's a mental thing too. They've blown how many leads?
yeah,
Like
multi-goal
three
leads.
really bad ones. Three
Yeah.
really bad ones. And I just think overall this team, especially like how much I was hyping them up, and I know the defense is so mediocre to poor, but you have Thatcher Demko, you have such a gross top 9, and this is how you start the year with all the excitement. I think the Canucks are just one of those teams that it's like the fan base doesn't know what to expect at this point. Like, they really don't.
Yeah, I mean, man, like I feel like one thing you can't always control as players is the tone that gets set to the media, to the fans. And so even though they've lost all these games, I understand they're going to be under some fire. They're going to get some questions that they're going to have to answer that are hard hitting. But there's no reason to say things like JT Miller and Bo Horvat said that only add more gasoline on top of the fire in this situation. I don't understand, even from also from a leadership perspective. Bo Horvat is your captain. How there's guys walking into that locker room, they know he said this, how they aren't like, there's some distrust or some, there creates friction between the guys.
And man, the whole irony of the situation too, in the situation of like, what we said, JT Miller just signed his contract, but Bo Horvat, this is a guy that needs a contract soon.
Yep.
Like, so the whole scenario here is like, do the Canucks, and I'm not insinuating that they do this, but what I'm saying is like, I'm putting it up in the air here. If they see some massive regret with their decision to lock in a guy that's going into his, well, I mean, Horvat's younger. I don't know what the age difference is, but you have a lot of younger guys. And do you learn from your decision on JT Miller and choose not to re-sign Horvat long-term at what I think will be 7.5 plus, maybe even 8 plus per year? And because I guarantee Horvat and his agent will look at comparables like a Sean Couturier, even though he's been injured, or like looking at what Nick Suzuki just signed, or looking at like a bunch of guys around the league, specifically his teammate in JT Miller. Yes, Horvat hasn't put up the numbers, but being better overall, or like overall game, and being the captain, like he's definitely like, there's no way it's under 7. So it's above 7, above 7.5. Like this guy could be pushing for 8 per year, and I would be surprised.
Yeah. And I think I don't want to jump the gun and maybe go too hot off the deep end here, but a quote like that really resets from the general manager perspective with Rutherford. Like, is this the guy you want to keep around as your captain, especially if they keep losing games like this? I mean, because in the worst of it, if he's not going to be able to get in front of it, I don't know if I want him leading my team when the times get hard and you're in playoff series. But Jim Rutherford, he's obviously had a tough job to deal with a lot of contracts that were left from the previous regime. And I still think it's a team building issue. Like you talked about with the defense. I think the defense is mediocre, if not poor. But this team is way better than what they've shown so far. So I think they will turn a little bit around, but if they keep going like this, they're going to be in too big of a hole to even talk about making the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And like, that's where it's going right now. It's early on. I can't believe Bedard and the Canucks are in the same conversation right now, but yeah, Oliver DB on Twitter. We're going to shout some out throughout the next few pods, guys. And if you guys like, make sure you drop a comment on YouTube or add us on social media. But Oliver DB on Twitter says Bruce Boudreau will be gone in 2 weeks. So that's a hot take. And Mitch Villani, shout out to BLV, says, what is the Canucks' biggest issue and how can they turn it around? So yeah, I think we're kind of on the same page. It's probably a lot of the behind the scenes and team like synergy, chemistry, whatever you want to talk about. But I believe that a lot of it's that, but it does seem like a mental thing. Like some of these JT Miller giveaways and just the lines, and even a guy like Kuzmenko who had so much hype going into the like preseason and through the season. And like, I'm already seeing guys drop Kuzmenko like nothing on fantasy, and just he's not putting up the numbers. So for me, I was also getting frustrated because Kuzmenko wasn't working, like as we've seen on the power play. That power play in general, now Hughes is down. Besser should have been there. Now he's injured too, short term. So I don't know, man. The Canucks are just a big mess right now. They've got to switch something up. They've got to switch the lines. They've got to, like, the fact that Garland was a healthy scratch. Like, we can go on and on and on with this team right now. But I think it just goes back to the whole JT Miller conversation. And I do strongly believe that they did make – I was trying to see the perspective, and there was a good perspective. But I do believe they made a massive mistake not trading this guy a year ago. I think they should have traded JT Miller a year ago when his value was at its highest, either a year ago or at the deadline when he has a productive season like that. When he puts a production like that at the deadline, I honestly think they probably could have gotten like a first, second prospect and walk away laughing, because then they would also have additional cap space.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they even had the opportunity to try to trade him before they signed him here. I know it was going to be tougher at start of season, but they definitely made the wrong call as of right now, because this is just going to blow up in their face. It's a long-term deal. He's 29, so he ain't getting any younger. And just to go back to what you were saying, John, Bo Horvat's at 27, so he's going to be coming up on his 28th birthday when this contract is going to have to go down. So it's similar age from that perspective. Yeah.
So we'll see. Will they learn from it? Will Bo Horvat be a Canuck long term? And I mean, will the Canucks turn it around? And are we seriously talking about the Canucks being in a Connor Bedard? I mean, hey, Bedard, it seems like he's a Canucks guy. he got asked. I don't know if you saw it, because he got asked before the season, and he said his pick for the cup was the Canucks. So clearly clearly some bias there. They did a social media video, and a bunch of people are saying like the Avs, Oilers, Hurricanes, and then Bedard comes up from the bench and goes, the Vancouver Canucks. So
or it was a reverse jinx, so they'd come last and pick him. Maybe, who knows?
Maybe
Who knows what he was thinking?